They say every love story is beautiful, but not all have a happy ending. Picture this: a beautiful wedding. Laughter fills the air, happy tears stream down cheeks, and promises of forever are exchanged. On the surface, it's a perfect day, but beneath all the joy lies a storm of lies, betrayal, and heartbreak. This is the story of Malik, Ayana, and Nazir. A story that will make you question how far ambition can go and just how fragile trust really is. It was supposed to be a day of happiness. Malik Dillard, a man admired for his hard work, honesty, and deep love for Ayana Willis, was marrying the woman of his dreams. The hall was alive with the warmth of family and friends, all there to celebrate this sacred union. Laughter and joy echoed as everyone gathered to witness their love story come to life. She was the picture of beauty, standing by his side like the perfect match. Together, they seemed like a couple straight out of a dream, admired by everyone who knew them. The day felt like a fairy tale, filled with joy, love, and tradition. The richness of African American culture added depth and meaning to the ceremony, making it a celebration to remember. But behind the smiles and the laughter, beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect union, a different story was unfolding. The guests, cheering for Malik and Ayana's bright future, had no idea of the storm that was about to hit. This day of celebration would soon take a dark turn, revealing secrets that could shatter trust and love. As the evening wore on, the cracks in the perfect image began to show. The truth was on its way out, bringing consequences no one could have imagined. Ayana's story didn't start with glittering chandeliers or a lavish wedding. It began in a modest neighborhood where dreams of comfort and stability felt far out of reach. Growing up, Ayana Willis quickly learned how tough life could be. She knew the struggles of stretching every dollar, the sting of empty cupboards, and the reality that love alone wouldn't pay the bills or keep a roof over her head. These early hardships shaped her into someone determined to rise above her circumstances. Ayana craved a life where she would never have to worry about money again. That hunger for a better future influenced every decision she made, including the one that brought her to Malik Dillard. Malik was everything she dreamed of, a man whose success and stability seemed like the key to the life she always wanted, a life free from the struggles that had defined her past. But dreams, no matter how shiny, sometimes come with shadows of their own. When Ayana met Malik, it wasn't love at first sight. It was more about realizing what he could offer her. Malik was well-respected, successful, and wealthy, the kind of man who could give her the life she had always dreamed of. From the moment they crossed paths, Ayana made up her mind. She knew that with the right approach, she could secure a future that was both comfortable and luxurious. Their meeting felt like fate, a chance encounter that quickly grew into a relationship. But for Ayana, it wasn't about pure attraction. Yes, Malik was a good-looking man with a kind smile and a calm, gentle way about him, but that wasn't what mattered most. To her, he represented an escape from the life she had always known, and a doorway into one she had always wanted, a life of ease and luxury. Malik wasn't just a partner in her eyes, he was her way out, a provider who could give her the stability she craved. As time went on and their bond deepened, Ayana played her part flawlessly. She knew how to dress, what to say, and how to act to be the woman Malik needed. She became everything he wanted: thoughtful, caring, and supportive. She seemed to understand him better than anyone else ever had. To Malik, she was perfect, beautiful, loving, and just as smitten with him as he was with her. But behind her warm smiles and thoughtful gestures, Ayana was always thinking ahead. She was careful with every move she made, ensuring that it brought her closer to the life she had always dreamed of living. For her, love wasn't just about feelings, it was part of the plan. But then there was Nazir Dillard. He was a completely different type of man, less grounded, more carefree. Nazir was still trying to figure out his path in life, unlike his older brother Malik, whose success was already clear for everyone to see. Nazir had his own charm, though. He had this boyish energy that drew people in, especially women. But unlike Malik, Nazir didn't have the money or the stability Ayana was searching for so desperately. Their first meeting was nothing like her planned, polished encounter with Malik. It was unexpected, full of sparks and completely unplanned. What started as a chance meeting quickly turned into something deeper. Ayana didn't see Nazir as someone who could be part of her future. To her, he was a distraction, a way to experience something wild and forbidden. Nazir was the exact opposite of the life she had carefully planned for herself, and maybe that's what made him so tempting. Being with him felt freeing, exciting even, because it came with a hint of danger. She knew it couldn't go anywhere serious, and maybe that's why she couldn't stay away. But as time passed, keeping their secret became more difficult. The line between love and manipulation started to blur. Their affair began innocently enough, just a stolen kiss here, a quiet conversation in a shadowed corner where no one would notice them. But what started as a small mistake soon grew into something intense. The thrill of sneaking around became addictive. Every time they met in secret, it felt like a test to see how far they could go without anyone finding out. For Ayana, the whole thing was a storm of emotions. Ayana was smitten, completely drawn to a man who seemed to see her in a way no one else ever had. But for her, it was a tightrope walk. Deep down, she knew this relationship with Nazir could never be exposed. It was a threat to everything she had worked so hard to build with Malik. Yet, she needed Nazir not just for the thrill or the connection, but for the power it gave her. Being with him allowed her to control both brothers, keeping them firmly in her grasp as she carefully planned her future. The affair wasn't just a secret, it was a tool. Ayana used every trick she had, her charm, her cleverness, even moments of vulnerability, to keep Nazir close. She made sure he felt just enough guilt to stay quiet, but not so much that he'd walk away. Each meeting between them felt like a well-rehearsed dance. She led every step, holding all the cards and making sure things went her way. As the wedding day drew near, Ayana's plan began to fall into place. She was pregnant. A revelation like that could have destroyed everything, but Ayana saw it as an opportunity. The baby wasn't Malik's, but she made him believe it was. Every day, she strengthened his faith in their love story. She convinced him that this child was their greatest blessing, the start of their perfect little family. Malik, clueless about the lies unfolding around him, was ecstatic. The idea of becoming a father filled him with joy. He trusted Ayana completely. His love for her only grew as he dreamed about the future they'd share. Every time she placed his hand on her belly, a rush of satisfaction coursed through her. Her plan was working. Malik didn't notice the small things, the way her smile sometimes faltered, or how her mind seemed elsewhere. He was lost in dreams of their life together, imagining the child they'd raise and the happiness they'd share. For Malik, the wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was the start of a new chapter, a life he believed was built on love and trust. But little did he know, everything he was looking forward to was built on a web of lies. As the wedding day approached, the tension in the air became impossible to ignore. Nazir's guilt gnawed at him, making it harder for him to keep quiet. He knew that once the vows were spoken, once the rings were exchanged, there would be no turning back. The secret he held felt like a ticking bomb, one that could explode and ruin everything. On the other hand, Ayana's determination only grew stronger. She couldn't afford to slip now, not when she was so close to getting the life she'd always dreamed of. She played her role perfectly, keeping up appearances and ensuring Nazir stayed in line. But the weight of her lies was starting to show. Small cracks were appearing in her carefully crafted facade, though she did her best to hide them. As the big day drew closer, the unspoken tension between them hung heavy in the air. It was the kind of tension that warned of an approaching storm. Ayana, Nazir, and Malik were like three cars speeding towards a collision, one that would change their lives forever. The stage was set, the pieces were in place. All that remained was for fate to take its course. The wedding morning was bright and clear, a picture-perfect day for what was meant to be the happiest moment in Malik's life. Guests arrived one by one, their laughter and chatter filling the air. Their joy was infectious, but one person in the crowd couldn't bring himself to join in: Nazir, the groom's younger brother. Nazir stood apart, weighed down by a secret that threatened to shatter everything. As he watched Malik, glowing with love and excitement, Nazir's guilt and jealousy burned inside him. The child Ayana carried was his, yet here she was, preparing to marry another man. Every smile Malik shared with Ayana, every loving glance between them cut Nazir deeply. It was a constant reminder of the life he could never have. No matter how much he tried to focus on the celebration, his emotions refused to stay buried. They clawed at him, demanding his attention, until all he could feel was the suffocating weight of regret and betrayal. The day might have been filled with joy for everyone else, but for Nazir, it was a slow, silent torment. As the ceremony went on, Nazir felt more and more uncomfortable. The vows, the exchange of rings, the kiss that sealed everything, it all felt like a cruel joke. It reminded him painfully of the lie that had led them here. He stood by his brother's side, pretending to be the supportive sibling, but inside he was a mess of mixed emotions. How could he just watch as another man, his own brother, unknowingly took on the responsibility of raising his child? The thought ate at him, making him feel angry, sad, and helpless. The guests, completely unaware of what was going on inside Nazir, cheered and clapped. Their happiness felt like a sharp contrast to the darkness inside him. He tried to smile, tried to join in on the celebrations, but every laugh felt fake. Every congratulations was a reminder of the life he would never get to have. As Malik and Ayana walked down the aisle hand in hand, Nazir felt a wave of despair. With every step they took, they were moving further away from the truth and deeper into a future built on lies. Meanwhile, Malik was totally unaware of the turmoil brewing inside his brother. His heart was light, filled with love and excitement for the future with his new wife. He moved through the crowd, smiling from ear to ear, greeting everyone with a warmth that showed how happy he was. This was the day he'd been waiting for. Everything felt perfect. He thanked the guests, genuinely appreciating their presence on such an important day. Each handshake, each hug just added to his joy. His love for Ayana shone through in every glance he gave her. In his mind, there was no room for doubt, no reason to question anything. He trusted her completely, and Malik, lost in the joy of the day, didn't notice the tension in Nazir. He couldn't see how Nazir's smile was tight, or how his eyes looked at Ayana with a mix of longing and pain. Malik's happiness was so big and all-consuming, it kept him from noticing the signs that something was wrong. To him, everything was perfect. The difference between Malik's joy and Nazir's growing despair was impossible to ignore. While Malik was on cloud 9, Nazir felt himself sinking deeper into sadness, his secret threatening to take over. But for now, Malik remained completely unaware of the storm that was quietly brewing around him. His heart was full, his future bright, while Nazir struggled in silence. Then there was Ayana, the bride, who was in charge of keeping everything under control. On the outside, she looked calm, her face peaceful as she moved through the day with grace. She seemed perfect, smiling and speaking just right to keep up the appearance. But inside, Ayana knew how much pressure there was, how close everything could fall apart if she didn't handle it carefully. All day long, she worked to make sure everything stayed the way she wanted, managing both men in a way that kept them in check. With Malik, it was easy. He was so deeply in love with her and trusted her so completely that all it took was a gentle touch or a smile to keep him happy. She knew exactly what to say and how to act to make sure he didn't suspect anything. Every time he looked at her with those loving eyes, she felt a rush of satisfaction, knowing her plan was going exactly how she wanted. But Nazir was a different story. She could see the struggle in his eyes. He was torn inside, and she knew it wasn't going to be easy to keep him calm. He was having a hard time accepting what was going on, and she had to make sure he didn't do anything that could mess everything up. She used everything she had, her charm, her understanding, the way she made him feel needed and guilty, to keep him under her control. As the day went on, Ayana found chances to talk to Nazir, pulling him aside like she was concerned. But really, it was just to keep him in check. She reminded him how bad it would be if the truth came out, how much it would hurt Malik and the child they both had to protect. She knew how to play on his emotions, making him think about their unborn child to keep him quiet. All the while, she reassured him that everything would be okay, that as long as he trusted her and did what she said, they could figure out a way to make it work. Ayana's calm appearance hid the turmoil inside her. She knew she was walking a fine line, One wrong move and everything could fall apart. But she was determined to make it work, to secure the life she had always dreamed of, no matter what it took. She had learned how to influence people around her in small, clever ways, making them feel reassured while still staying in control. She kept both men exactly where she needed them. As the day went on, the perfect picture of happiness stayed intact, even though trouble was brewing just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. The reception had been everything they wanted, filled with laughter, celebrations, and cheers for the future. As the evening went on, the guests enjoyed their food and drinks and slowly began to head home, leaving behind the leftover traces of what had been a great day. As the night wore on, Ayana felt her energy slip away. The weight of everything that had happened during the day pressed down on her, and her body seemed to be telling her just how tired she was. She had played the part of the perfect, happy bride so well, but now, with the guests gone and the lights dimming, the exhaustion began to catch up with her. She quietly slipped away from the party, leaving Malik behind to say goodbye to the last few guests. His smile was still as bright as ever, unaware of the trouble that was about to unfold. Ayana made her way back to the hotel, each step feeling heavier than the last. Her mind was clouded with thoughts of what was coming. She knew Nazir was struggling, that the pressure of the day had pushed him to his limit, and she worried about what he might do next. But she was too tired to think clearly, too drained to prepare for what was coming. All she wanted now was a moment to herself, to find some peace before everything she had done started to catch up with her. As she walked down the quiet halls of the hotel, she could feel the tension around her. There was something heavy in the air, a kind of dread that made her heart race. She finally reached her room, closed the door behind her, and let out a long breath. The silence in the room was comforting, giving her a moment of peace from the chaos she had just experienced. She moved slowly, her mind running in circles as she thought about how to deal with Nazir, how to keep everything from falling apart. She knew he would come. He couldn't stay away, not with everything on the line. And even though she wasn't looking forward to it, she knew this confrontation had to happen. There was no more running from the truth. It was about to come out, and she had to be ready. Down at the reception, Nazir stayed behind, his eyes locked on Ayana as she left. His heart was pounding. The evening had been torture for him, with every second reminding him of the lie he was living, the secret he had been hiding from his brother Malik, the one person in the world who trusted him the most. He tried to stay calm, tried to push his feelings down, but as the night dragged on, the weight of his guilt became too much to bear. He watched Malik, still laughing and enjoying his perfect evening, and felt a mix of anger and sadness rise up inside him. How could he keep watching as his brother remained in the dark? How could he stand by as his own child was about to be raised by someone else? In that moment, Nazir made his decision. He couldn't stay silent anymore. He had to talk to Ayana. He needed answers, especially about what was going to happen to his child. Without even thinking, his legs moved on their own, taking him away from the reception hall and toward the hotel. His mind was racing with so many thoughts and feelings. What would he say to her? How would he even start? His mind was full of questions, but there were no answers. All he knew was that he had to face her, to deal with the reality of what they had done. As he got closer to the hotel, a familiar feeling of dread started twisting in his stomach. This was it, the moment that would change everything. The air felt heavy, the silence around him almost too much to bear as he walked down the hall toward her room. Each step seemed to drag on forever, his heart pounding harder with every one. He could feel the pressure of the truth about to come out, the truth that had been hidden for so long, and it made his hands shake. But there was no turning back now. The door was right in front of him, and beyond it was the confrontation that had been coming since the beginning of this mess. Nazir reached the door, his hand hovering for a moment, unsure. His heart was pounding in his chest, and he could feel his body filled with nervous energy. For just a second, he thought about walking away, leaving everything behind. But then he thought of his child, of the future his child would have without him in it, and it gave him the strength to move forward. He took a deep breath and knocked. If you're enjoying the story so far, go ahead and hit that follow or subscribe button. Inside, Ayana flinched at the sound. She knew it was him even before she opened the door. Her hand shook as she turned the knob and pulled it open. There he was, standing there with his eyes full of fear and determination. She didn't say anything, just stepped aside and let him in. The door clicked softly behind him, shutting out the world around them. For a moment they just stood there, the silence thick between them. Then, without warning, Nazir's words spilled out. "What are we going to do?" His voice was low, shaky, but full of emotion. His eyes were wild, desperate. "What's going to happen to our child?" Ayana sighed deeply, her shoulders dropping as she gathered the strength to face him. "Nazir, we've talked about this before," she said, her voice steady, almost too steady. "I married Malik because he gives me stability. He's able to provide for me and this child. It's too late to change anything now." But her words didn't seem to calm him down. If anything, they made his anger grow. "Stability?" he said harshly, his voice louder as he stepped closer to her. "So you're going to let my brother raise my child? And you expect me to just stand by and do nothing? How can you ask that of me?" Ayana stood still as the tension in the room grew. The argument was getting louder, each of them becoming more heated with every word. Nazir's frustration was spilling over. His love for his child was fighting with his loyalty to his brother. He wanted to be there for his child, to protect them, but Ayana's decision had left him feeling stuck, like there was no way out. The thought of another man, especially his own brother, taking his place in his child's life was unbearable. Ayana, on the other hand, was struggling to stay composed, but it was getting harder. "Do you think this is easy for me?" she snapped back, her voice shaking with emotion. "I'm doing what I have to do to survive, to give this child a better future. Don't you get that?" But Nazir wasn't hearing her. His anger had completely taken over, pushing him to the edge. "And what about me? What about our child? Do we mean nothing to you?" His voice cracked, and the pain in his words sliced through the air. He was desperate, trying to get her to see his side, hoping she would find a way to fix the situation. But Ayana stood firm. She had already come so far, and there was no turning back now. "It's too late," she whispered, barely audible over the sound of Nazir trying to catch his breath. "We can't go back." The room grew quiet, the tension hanging thick between them. The weight of her words hung in the air, making everything feel heavier. Nazir's mind was racing, his emotions all over the place, anger, fear, and hopelessness taking over. He had been looking for answers, something that would make things better, but instead all he found were more questions and even more confusion. The situation felt worse than ever, like the walls were closing in around him, and the reality of what was happening was pressing down hard. The argument hadn't helped at all. It hadn't brought any peace or clarity, just left him feeling more lost and helpless than before. As the argument was still going on, Malik made his way to the room. He had just said his goodbyes to the last of the guests, and was heading upstairs, eager to be with his bride and enjoy the first calm moments of their marriage. A smile was still on his face as he walked down the hallway, thoughts of their future together filling his mind. But as he approached the door, something made him stop. He heard raised voices, the sounds of an argument coming from inside the room. His hand froze just inches from the door. The voices weren't clear, but the tension in them was obvious. There was anger, frustration, and a sense of hopelessness. His heart started racing, fear creeping in as he tried to listen more closely. He recognized the voices, Ayana's sounding frustrated and defeated, and Nazir's full of pain and anger. The feeling that something was terribly wrong hit him all at once, weighing heavily on his chest. But he couldn't move. He just couldn't bring himself to interrupt what was going on inside. Instead, he pressed his ear to the door, trying to make sense of the voices and words that were spilling out. As the conversation went on, Malik felt his whole world start to fall apart. The things he overheard were like sharp, painful blows, each one making him feel more lost and betrayed. He heard Nazir's voice, full of anger and fear, asking about the future of his child, the child Malik thought was his own. Then Ayana's voice, soft but honest, admitting that she had married him for stability, for the life he could give her, not for love. In just a few short moments, the truth came crashing down around him. Each word felt like it tore away at the life he had built, revealing how little of it had been real. Malik stood there, frozen, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The weight of what he had just learned pressed down on him, and he could barely wrap his mind around the fact that the woman he loved and the brother he had trusted had been working together all along, hiding the truth from him, tearing apart everything he believed. The life he had imagined for himself was just a lie. He couldn't move, couldn't bring himself to face them just yet. Every word they spoke, every accusation, and every plea for understanding made the pain sink deeper inside him. He needed time to process it all, to figure out what this meant before confronting the people he once thought he knew so well. Finally, after what felt like forever, Malik found the strength to move. He knew he couldn't keep avoiding them. He couldn't keep standing there in the dark, feeling broken. So, he took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and knocked on the door. The sound of the knock echoed through the room, stopping the conversation inside in its tracks. Ayana and Nazir fell silent, realizing that their secret was no longer just theirs. The knock wasn't loud, but it was enough. It was the moment when everything changed. Nazir's heart raced in his chest, and he exchanged a glance with Ayana. They both knew what was about to happen, but neither of them was ready for the damage they had caused. Nazir took a slow step toward the door, his hand shaking as he reached for the handle. When he opened the door, Malik stood there, his face filled with hurt, his eyes locking with Nazir's. In that moment, the strong bond of brotherhood between them shattered completely. The pain in Malik's eyes was clear, a mirror of the deep wound they had inflicted. There were no words that could undo what had been done. The truth was out, and there was no going back. As Malik stepped into the room, the full weight of the betrayal hit him, and the air grew heavy and thick with silence. What had started between Ayana and Nazir now consumed Malik as well, pulling him into a storm of hurt and confusion. The realization hit him hard once again, but this time it was worse. It felt like something deep inside him snapped, a painful break that would never fully heal. The woman he loved, the brother he had trusted, both of them had destroyed him. As he stood there, the reality of their betrayal washed over him, and he understood that nothing would ever be the same again. Malik stood still in the room, feeling like everything he had known was falling apart around him. The trust and love he had once shared with Ayana and Nazir had turned into a whirlwind of emotions, sadness, anger, and a deep sense of loss. His heart, once full of happiness and hope, now felt like a broken stone in his chest. He looked at them, his wife, his brother, the two people he had trusted more than anyone else. Now they were just strangers to him, the ones who had torn apart the life he had dreamed of. The truth of what had happened hit Malik hard. It felt like the ground was crumbling beneath him, and he was struggling to stay together. How could they do this to him? How could they ruin everything he had believed in? His mind raced, trying to understand the chaos that had just exploded in his life. All the time he had spent with Ayana, all the promises he had made, all the dreams he had for their future. It was a cruel joke. The love he had once felt so strongly for them had now turned into the deepest pain he had ever known, and he couldn't seem to escape the weight of it. In a surge of emotions, Malik turned to face Ayana and Nazir, his voice shaking with anger and sadness. "How could you do this to me?" he asked, his eyes burning with fury. "How could you both betray me like this? I loved you. I trusted you." His words hung in the air, heavy with the pain of someone who had lost everything that mattered. Ayana and Nazir stood there, looking guilty and ashamed. But no matter what they said, nothing could undo the hurt they had caused. The room felt smaller, as though the walls were closing in on them, and Malik's emotions boiled over. "You are my brother!" he shouted at Nazir, his voice breaking with grief. "How could you do this to me? How could you look me in the eye and lie to me every day?" His gaze turned to Ayana, the woman he thought he was meant to be with. "And you? How could you deceive me like this? How could you make me believe this was our child, our future? You've ruined everything." The air was thick with emotion, raw and uncontainable. Malik's eyes filled with tears as he tried to understand the depth of the betrayal. Each word he spoke was filled with the heartache of someone who had lost everything. The room was silent except for the sound of his breathing, heavy with the weight of a life that would never be the same again. The tension in the room was unbearable, and the emotions were spiraling out of control. It felt like everything was about to break apart. In the middle of all the chaos, something unexpected happened. A tragic moment that would change everything for everyone involved. Malik, overwhelmed by grief and anger, made a split-second decision he would soon regret. In a rush of fury, he charged toward Nazir, driven by emotions that felt like they were taking over his mind. The room erupted into noise, their struggle filling the air, and then, just like that, it happened. A tragic accident that no one saw coming. Nazir stumbled and fell, his body hitting the floor, his life fading away in an instant. Ayana screamed, her voice cutting through the air as she rushed to Nazir, but it was already too late. The damage was done. Malik stood there, unable to move, his mind racing as the reality of what he'd just done started to sink in. The room went quiet, heavy with the weight of what had just occurred. What was supposed to be a celebration had turned into a nightmare. The lies, the betrayals, the secrets, they all led to this terrible moment. There was no undoing what had happened. Malik, Ayana, and Nazir all paid the price for the choices they'd made, for the lies they'd told and the trust they'd broken. There was no way back from this. That night, and the choices they made would haunt them forever. The pain of what had happened would stay with them, a reminder of how fragile trust really is, and how much damage lies can cause. The room was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by Ayana's quiet sobs as she held Nazir's lifeless body. Malik stood still, his mind blank, his heart crushed. Everything had changed because of their lies and broken promises, leading to this moment, a moment that couldn't be undone. The love and trust they had once shared were now shattered beyond repair, leaving each of them with the painful marks of what had happened. What was supposed to be a new start had turned into a place of lost dreams and broken hopes. Malik, Ayana, and Nazir had all paid a terrible price for their actions, the secrets they kept, the trust they betrayed, and the lies they told. There was no way to fix it, no way to go back. That night would stay with them forever, a painful reminder of how fragile trust can be and how destructive dishonesty can become, the secrets that were kept, and the lives that were destroyed as a result. The story of Malik, Ayana, and Nazir serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of betrayal, of the devastating consequences that can arise when trust is broken. What is the cost of deception? How far can a lie go before it unravels, taking everything down with it? These are the questions that linger in the aftermath of this tragedy, questions that force us to confront the darker aspects of human nature, the choices we make, the secrets we keep. Each one carries a weight, a potential to alter the course of our lives and the lives of those we love. In the end, we are left to ponder the moral implications of their actions, to consider the heavy toll that betrayal and lies can exact on our souls. Trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, it can never truly be mended. The story of Malik, Ayana, and Nazir is a chilling reminder of this truth. Imagine if you could have warned Malik, could have helped him see the truth before it was too late. Wouldn't you do anything to prevent such a tragedy? By subscribing to our channel, you support our mission to bring these stories to light, to learn from the past, and hopefully prevent future tragedies. Don't let these stories fade into obscurity. Subscribe now, and let's continue to explore the dark side of human nature together.